Ethereum since 2014 is the best performing asset. No, it's not Bitcoin.
Well, that's an interesting point, and yeah, like I want to be clear. I love Bitcoin, but I really don't like this, toxic maximalism, because I think these things are intertwined, and we talked about that, right? It's like the stable coins on Ethereum and Solana and Tron are traded on exchanges against Bitcoin, so they're good for Bitcoin. But when you look at the price of ETH going back to the ICO, over the last 10 years, it's like the only asset in the world that's like outperformed Bitcoin. That's the thing. And that includes the last 3-4 years of, the ETH BTC price taking a pretty big dump. Yeah. And yet still. So it's important to think about those things. Now, obviously, when you bought makes a big difference, right? If you bought in the ICO, then yes, you have outperformed. If you bought last year, then no, you have not outperformed. I mean, so it just depends on your temporal view. But yeah, we're seeing definitely a big shift in Ethereum. I think finally, and this is kind of one of the things we talked about off camera that I think is important to talk about, in my opinion, going back to the COVID stuff, and seeing what people like you did in the moment, which was very brave. But I think one of the reasons Ethereum had a really tough last few years was because the social layer shifted. And one of the reasons it shifted was because during COVID, and back then I had a big Twitter account. Eventually I got banned as well. But and I might have been one of the first like big Ethereum people that was like taking an open stance against it. Again, not commenting on whether you should take vaccines or not, but advocating for bodily autonomy and informed consent and so on, and none of this herding people into open air prisons or locking them in their houses and so on. But I took a lot of heat for that, and there was a lot of prominent Ethereum people who, the mask came off. You could tell they were like advocating for tyranny, taking unbelievable positions that you would never think. And you got to realize the genesis of Ethereum was very much rooted in the same, I would say, libertarian ideals as Bitcoin. And that's how it was in the beginning. And suddenly it was like something flipped, and we went into like, draconian communism or something, where like COVID was like the mechanism to enforce, tyranny. And a lot of people I know were put off by that. And so, at the same time, I give them credit. The Solana community, for the most part, was approaching it in a different manner, more liberty-minded and individual freedom-minded. And I know personally several big Ethereum whales who shifted into Solana, or people shifted back into Bitcoin because they wanted to identify. Like the way your community, it's like identifying with your community is a big part of which token you want to hold. And I think for a number of years, Ethereum went into like this ultra woke, hellscape, and I think I'm like a classic 1960s liberal, to be honest. Like I like free speech, I like less government, I don't want any violence, I don't want any war. Yeah, you can smoke pot if you want or whatever. Like I don't, but I'm not into this like weird stuff, right? Which the world is coming out of right now, I think, for the most part. I mean, it's still a little bit there, but
hints of it.
There's hints of it
in the U.S. and Europe.
But it's not like it was in the peak of this stuff,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And so Ethereum, of all the blockchains, embraced that stuff the most, frankly.
And it hurt it, you think?
100%. And I think part of what's happening right now is there's been a realignment in the community, which I think is great. Also, part of it too is like Ethereum's quite young. So when we're young, we tend to be quite leftist, when we're not really thinking about things thoroughly.
What the London Real Investment Club actually does for you, it gives you the keys to open that door to the inside deals. In the last 3 weeks, I've participated in 3 incredible deals: a layer 2 Bitcoin protocol, an incredible AI protocol. The deal flow is beyond what I expected. I don't think I've ever seen a model like this that just gives average folks the opportunity to be behind the deals. And that's exactly what we've done. Not only that, you get to hang out with Brian Rose every week. And for me, that was huge, because I look at Brian as somebody who's not only an expert in the space, and I think is on the leading edge, but just the leading edge of thought with London Real and the work he's doing there. To anyone who's taking a serious look at this, I know it's a big decision. It was a big decision for me and my family, and it is one of the best decisions I've ever made. So I wish you all the best and hope you come join us.
And ideals should be quite simple. And the community's grown up a bit, I think, and now I'm 43. I'm probably one of the older Ethereum people, but a lot of them are now in their kind of early mid-30s, and they have more life experience, and they're more rational and more centrist. So I think as Ethereum goes back to the center, which is where it should be. It should be a place that's home for everybody. And really, it should be a place where what we care about is the technology, and it's always been a tech-centric hub, in my opinion, where the thing that you feel really good about is, wow, there's a lot of really smart people here who are thinking about hard problems, and the dynamism. I understand Bitcoin doesn't want to change, and I think that's fine. That's one of its appeals. But also Ethereum, it hard forks all the time, it versions all the time, and so on, and that's its appeal, and there's room for both. When we focus on being that technology leader, that's when people feel really good about Ethereum. And I think over the last, particularly year, and really over the last 6 months, there's been changes at the foundation, and different people have come in, and now it's all shifted, and it really feels a lot more centrist now. And it feels good for a lot of people. Like, I can embrace this. It's just like a brand. Like, you don't want to wear certain things if like the people supporting that brand are not aligned.
Bud Light getting rid of their tranny endorser.
Yeah,
they're like, we don't want to do that anymore. Everyone's like, okay, we'll buy your beer again.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's lots of examples of brands making certain decisions that may or may not alienate certain audiences, and so I think that's at the social layer a big shift that's happening in Ethereum. And when it's in a good spot, in that sweet spot, man, that thing can just rip and go. It can just absolutely fly. So we'll see what happens. But that's kind of my take on it. And I think when you see mature, intelligent, hardworking people like Andrew Keys, for example, putting together a great product like the Ether machine, it's a signal that like things have changed a bit.
Well, the narrative has changed a lot in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Because we're coming to the end of a 4-year cycle. I'll ask you maybe later if you think we're still going to have 4-year cycles, but Bitcoin has quite literally dominated this cycle much more than most people thought. Bitcoin dominance did come off of 66%, and now it's down at 61. But I mean, people were counting out Ethereum, maybe not you, but like a year ago. And now the new narrative is it's the rails of stable coins. And it's going to be the next big thing. You've got the treasury companies coming up. Other people say, well, you've got all these other layer 2s, and it's going to be a ghost chain, and the layer 2s are riding for free on top of Ethereum. Tom Lee says Ethereum's the new Bitcoin, and then he says most stable coins are actually on Ethereum, which I don't know if that's true or if that will stay true. So what do you think the future looks like?
I think that those are all very good points. I would say that. So Bitcoin dominance indeed has been very strong over the last few years, and there's Benjamin Cohen, into the Cryptoverse guy, very smart guy. I like him a lot.
Show, I'm a fan.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I subscribe to his thing and everything, but and he's right very often. I mean, sometimes when he's wrong, he takes a lot of heat. Usually when he's wrong about alt season, and like last December or November, and things pumped like crazy. But I think Bitcoin dominance going up when the cost of capital is high, like we're in quantitative easing. Honestly, I think the reason it does that is because Ben has created an incredible meme. Like, people believe it, frankly. Because actually when, the cost of capital is high, when we're in a quantitative tightening phase, the place where you can earn and maximize yield is on Ethereum. And so, to me, it's a little bit like I don't know. I get it. Bitcoin liquidity is king, and so there's perception of its strength and so on, and people believe that. But yeah, definitely the last few years, dominance has been really strong. The thing is, what happens with these 4-year cycles, and I still believe in the cycles. I think just like with war, typically war tends to last 4 years, and then it kind of dissipates. One of the things that happens is people forget how reflexive and asymmetric this stuff. Like, I'll give you an example. I was with Polygon for a couple of years, and the Matic token, like, let's say, I don't know, March, April 2020 was like half a penny. A year later, it was like $3, right? It happened in no time. Or you see some of these other weird things like Shiba Inu or even Doge. Doge went up like 8x in one day. So when these things start to flip, we tend to forget how quickly that can really rip, and it tends to be right kind of as people are forgetting, which somehow seems to be 4 years. Of course, the Bitcoin halving plays a big part in that, right. But then at the same time, when you look at issuance on Ethereum now is actually lower, because it's a function of like the utility of the network and how much gets burned, and then that impacts the inflation rate and so on. And then to Tom Lee's point, I agree with him insofar as when you look at all of the assets that are on Ethereum and you look at these companies that are putting more assets onto the chain, and by the way, the same is going to start happening in Solana too. Solana doesn't have anywhere near the number of stablecoins, but it has much faster stablecoin growth. Those companies and those institutions are going to want to own a piece of the infrastructure.
Hey, I know investing in crypto is scary. It takes a real leap of faith because there are so many scams, rug pulls, and bad actors out there. It's a dangerous business, which is why 95% of people lose all their money. Well, that's why I created the London Real Investment Club, so you can access the hottest deals on the planet and use the crypto bull market to create the generational wealth that you deserve. Join my team of over 100 people from around the world that are making millions of dollars behind the scenes investing in blockchain, AI, Web3 games, DeFi, Bitcoin, and more. Don't miss out. Click the link below to book a call with one of my team now. But hurry, this bull market will end soon.
I know investing in crypto can be scary. That's why you gotta join the investment club. Pull the trigger. Let's do this.